I have failed you all miserably. I'm normally the kind of person that's really strict about the Scrawler Challenge and only using the supplies in the box. And generally I tend to be quite a positive person, and when I'm doing things like using products from a Scrawler box, I always try to keep a really balanced point of view, and I know you guys really appreciate that in terms of the unboxing, but this month I don't know what has happened, but not only did I cheat, I cheated twice. And I genuinely found this Scrawler challenge a nightmare from beginning to end, and I did not enjoy one iota of it. So let's get to top down view and you can see my disaster in action. Let's get going. I don't even know where to start with this. The first thing that I really didn't like about the Scrawler Challenge this month is the supplies. I am not a fine liner type of gal, especially when it comes to coloured ones. And taking into account the aforementioned inconsistencies with the colour change between the cap colour and whatever the original pen colour was, they were far too inconsistent to even use them as fine liners to outline what I was doing, and that kind of like ruined a lot of things for me. The other thing was the prompt itself. Rainbow Renaissance, it was just too easy to pick a Renaissance piece of art and recreate it using these pens and getting all these fancy colour gradients and all the rest of it, and I just did not want to do that because I know there's going to be a million of them, and I wanted to try and use my imagination a bit more and create something like just a little bit different. So my Renaissance history knowledge is not great. I am not a big history buff. I've got the basics, but I wanted to kind of explore that a little bit more. So what I did was I went online, as you do, and I looked at some of the larger events in in the Renaissance period, sort of poignant things that happened, and I wanted to create a sort of montage surrounding that. And I thought that would be really nice because I could draw, a couple of different things, and that might give me a bit more scope for using the fine liners as well. So one of the first things that stuck out to me that happened in the Renaissance period was the first atlas was published. So I thought that would be a really good thing to have as a backdrop for the rest of the items that I wanted to draw. So here is me sketching out and lining out what would be an atlas, and it does, I know it just looks like an open book right now, but you will see later on that I do try and make it look like an atlas. The inconsistencies in the colour changing aspect of the fine liners prevented me from using them to outline. It would be really nice to have some rainbow outlines, but they're just too unreliable. The other thing, and the first cheat that I did, is you will notice that I'm not working in the sketchbook, and for what I wanted to do, the pages were just too small, and again, that unknown consistency of the gradient changes could end up with me having something that was all in red when it should have been red through to yellow because you're working in such a tiny space. The inconvenience of having to keep faffing about with the caps as well, which I talked about before, I'm trying not to go over old ground here. It's just not for things like bullet journaling or doodling. I think they're fantastic and they are nice quality pens and they feel nice in your hand, but for actual artwork they're really not for me. I think if I was working on a gigantic piece of paper and I was doing something in a line work kind of style, then I maybe might possibly consider them, but they were just an inconvenience from start to finish, and I really wasn't all that excited about using them as a gradient even to fill in what I was doing, because there isn't enough room to give you that lovely transition so that you can see it all in all its glory. So yeah, that was kind of the gripe about what I was doing. The other thing is I've lost a bit of footage. It's in a little while, but you'll see it coming up. The first thing that I drew on the right hand side of the page was the Bahamas, because one of the things that happened during the Renaissance period was that Christopher Columbus reached the Bahamas. I apologise to anybody that is from the Bahamas, it is not an entirely accurate map, but I felt that was something that'd be quite cool to include, and it was really the only place in the picture on the right hand side where I got a use of the gradients of the fine liners. So I'm using the black fine liner here just to put in a little bit of depth with, you know, a little bit of shading, but I tried to keep it as subtle as possible. So there's my Bahamas, and in this corner in the top right, I am drawing another book. And one of the things that happened was the Gutenberg Bible was published, and it wasn't the Bible itself, but it was a new way of printing literature that kind of changed the way people were reading things. You know, they had this bound book with leather on the front, and it's absolutely beautiful. Look it up on Google if you don't know what it is. It is, you know, I have a thing about books. I have a lot of books, and I love, you know, old covers with like fancy details on it. So I was really excited about that. So I felt that, again, that had warranted a place within the drawing. I didn't want to use the black fine liner for outlines on the pages of the atlas because I think I would have not utilised the coloured fine liners as much, and it would have been really easy to do that. And to be honest, I think the quality of the drawing would have been much better had I done that. And one of the things that I'm not happy about this piece overall is that I don't think it's up to my normal standard of drawing. I think I could have done a lot better. Even in the confines of what was in the box, I still think I could have done better. So I popped in a little ship down here, and this is meant to represent Christopher Columbus's ship. And I have never drawn a ship before in my life, and I would say this is probably the weakest point of the drawing. And I was considerably narked with this already. So after the not filming the Bahamas bit and the fact that I'm using these fine liners, and I would say this is probably, yeah, it's just a really substandard drawing, but I think drawing ships is something that I would need to practice a little bit more because they are very detailed, and I've kind of got it at not quite a 3/4 angle as well, so I was actually just making things worse for myself, but I wanted it to, you know, I wanted it to fit into that section of the paper. So I did my best here to use some gradients to try and show off the fine liners, and it's just, the blue to the red was a bad choice because it's left this sort of mucky brown in the middle, which again I don't really like either. The red pen in particular bugged me no end because it wasn't a true red. If it had been, I think the picture would have been lifted overall a lot more, and I think it would have looked much better next to the pinks and the yellows and the greens, which are all very bright and vibrant. So I thought, stuff it, I'm going to do the gradient the same way as I did in the unboxing video. I wanted to get that in somewhere, so I decided to use it round the pages at the side. After all, it's supposed to be a rainbow picture. So one of my favourite transitions was the pink to the yellow, so that's what I'd settled on, and I just worked my way around. And I think it's actually done a reasonably good job of framing the pages and bringing that sort of rainbow aspect to the picture without being overpowering, because I was worried that it was going to kind of take over the picture, but because I didn't care much for what I was doing anyway, I genuinely really wasn't that bothered. And again, that's something that that would normally really annoy me, that I felt that way, but I really didn't give a monkeys with this picture. Okay, so here's the second place that I've cheated. Not only did I try the water soluble aspect of the fine liners as suggested by some of you in the unboxing video, thank you for suggesting that, but I also used a paintbrush as well, so that's something that wasn't in the scroller box, it wasn't included, so technically in my eyes I shouldn't have been using it. But again, just wanted to add something a little bit more to the picture, and truthfully, if you put the pen down on the paper and then brush water over the top, you still have ghosting from the pen, like you can see the pen strokes underneath, and for the background for this, that wasn't going to suit me. If you dilute it in water like I've done here, it's so subtle, you would have to put layer upon layer upon layer to really build up any colour, so it didn't really do much for me anyway. I wasn't that excited about that either. Just to mention as well, before I forget, I am working on Faber-Castell multimedia paper here if anyone's interested. So over to the left hand page, and one of the other things that was quite a big thing in the Renaissance was the Medici family and them founding their bank. And one of the things that they did was they didn't bring out their own coins, but they had things printed on medallions or stamped on medallions, and there's quite a lot of them floating about. So I thought it would be nice to include one of their little medals in with this as well, just to represent that kind of part of the Renaissance. And considering I never draw people, I was actually quite pleased with my little dude. His hair could have been better, but never mind. So down at the bottom here, this looks like quite an odd one, and it is in fact a spire from the Moscow Kremlin, and that doesn't really make sense for the Renaissance, but in the Renaissance period there were a lot of European architects commissioned to go over to Moscow and help rebuild the Kremlin in various spots and places, and I think it was mostly walls, I'm not entirely sure, but I just thought one of these little spires, these little towers, that, you know, that's a very iconic thing about the Kremlin in Moscow, so I figured that that was a good way to represent that part of the Renaissance. And finally, and weirdly, again, I don't tend to draw faces, I decided I had to include an artwork of some description. And I think I said in the unboxing, the first thing that popped into my head was the Mona Lisa. That's what I associate with, you know, Renaissance painting, if someone was to ask me. So I thought I would do a little sort of bright replica. And I actually really like the way the colour gradients turned out in this. And I think it's a nice representation in fine liner without going into any sort of detail. I mean, if you look at it from a distance, you would think that, okay, she's tried to kind of like stylize the Mona Lisa. So I was actually really happy with that part of the picture, and it was the part I was expecting to be the worst out of everything, but then after doing my ship I kind of thought to myself, no, that's going to be the worst part. So I suppose there was something good kind of to come out of this drawing. I suppose it's the green to yellow gradient, that's what I like. Ta-da! So the last thing I'm doing here is just popping in the grid lines for the atlas page, and this is really the only thing that makes it look like an atlas, apart from the fact that the Bahamas is on the right hand page. And I was just, pardon my French, but I was just pissed off with it by this point, and I just wanted it done, and I hate that feeling when I'm doing artwork. I hate it, it's horrible, and it's not the way I want to do art. But the downfall and the downside of that was that I started to rush what I was doing. And I realised when I was putting these grid lines in, because of the fold of the paper, or the, you know, the wave of the paper, the way the book's sitting open, my lines are not where they're supposed to be. And you can see there I've just drawn a really squint one in the middle, instead of taking time to make sure that they were flowing the right way and that they were equidistant. So when it came to doing the left hand side, I just tried to line them up in the crease of the book as best I could, but I was just like, okay, best of a bad job. So just a few finishing touches here, and again, wanted one more go at the gradient, so I've used a longer signature this time. And that is it, guys. That is my Scrawler challenge for August. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section. You know I always welcome them, and I'd love to hear about your experiences with this challenge as well. You can also check out some of these videos if you want some more stuff to watch, and we shall see you in the next video really soon back in the cave. I want to thank you all very much once again for watching, and we shall see you next time. Bye for now.